How's it going, my fellow geeklings? You are listening to the Auburn Phoenix here on the T-Stories podcast. I am your host, Scott Christie, and I am joined by my best friend and fellow content creator, Mark James, from the very popular, well, soon-to-be popular podcast, Mark My Words. How are you, Mark?
I'm very good, Scott, and thank you for inviting me onto your show.
No problem. It's always a joy. Like, you do the same for me, which I'm sure, depending on when your podcast comes out, I'm a guest on yours, you're a guest on mine, so...
Well, I'm releasing content every Wednesday.
Depending on when you're listening to this, this could be either past or future tense, so... Time warp.
Just don't dance like a twat.
Don't worry, Tim Curry's not here. Anyway, so today's subject is going to be a very geeky subject, considering we're going to be talking about video games.
Yes, I love me some video games.
I'm not like a hardcore gamer, and to be honest, I don't necessarily like that term, casual gamer, hardcore gamer. It just kind of demeans somebody else. It's yeah, you can enjoy something as much as you want. It's just because you binge watch Netflix more than one person doesn't mean you like TV more than the other.
One thing about gaming as well, it's got a huge nostalgic cult following, isn't it?
Funnily enough, you transitioned nicely onto my first question. Can you remember what the first video game was you played, or one that resonated with you?
Well, the first ever console I ever had was Sega Mega Drive, so I'd probably have to say Sonic the Hedgehog, the first one.
Nice. I got a feeling that was probably my first introduction to consoles as well, because my brother was big into his gaming at a time, and he still is, but I think the Sega Mega Drive was the first console I remember playing. And funny you mentioned Sonic, because Sonic was probably one of my first ones as well, but I think that's the only video game where I have ever seen my father play a console.
Yeah, that was a bit of a weird one. And there's one thing I used to play with my family as well. There was this golf game on Sega, and you could play up to 4 different players.
Oh, fair play.
So one controller, but you passed it on to people each time.
Ah.
We'd play it for hours.
So that was the introduction to Wii Sports, essentially, from Nintendo years later.
It was just a lot simpler. 3 buttons.
Yeah. Although, I tell you what, I've actually got one of those built-in Sega not cartridges, the actual console. You go to Mankind, you got the little compact ones with loads of games built in. And Sega games are a lot harder than I remember as a kid.
Yeah, I'm finding that with my Super Nintendo Classic. I'm I suck at Super Mario. I really suck at it.
I was always terrible at it. Literally, I just walk into every turtle constantly, and I'd be why is it not jumping?
Thing is, as soon as you learn the fast button on it, you don't want to let go of it, because you want to see how fast you can go without fucking up.
You just want to do a speed run of it.
Yeah, and it's no, but you got to know what's coming first. It's some people just make it look easy, don't they?
Oh, I know. Literally, you go online and just see so many people just playing through certain games, and it's just oh my god, how are you doing it so quickly? I die in the first few seconds.
I find that, but I'm very slow. Because the version I've got on my Super Nintendo Classic is Super Mario World. There is another one, Yoshi's Island. So you play as Yoshi, but you got baby Mario riding on you. So every time you get hit, Mario gets off and he starts crying, and you gotta... Basically, he's your lifeline. If you don't catch him, some little hooded figures kind of just nick him.
So Dementors before they were popular.
Yes. I think JK was a good gamer,
Yeah, I was going to say, she must have got some inspiration from that. But I think one game that does stick out a lot for me, apart from Sega, was PlayStation 1's Bugs Bunny Lost in Time. Did you ever play that?
Yeah, I loved that game. It was so fucking hard, but I loved it.
I know. I was massive into TV and cartoons as a child. I am now. But then it was just another story. But I literally thought to myself, this is amazing.
It was a weird one. I don't know about you. Did you spend extra long time on the tutorial level?
Yes.
Because it was so much to explore.
Yeah, I was just mesmerized. I was it's so basic, but to me as a 5 or 6 year old, I was just wow, this is so mind blowing.
Firstly, I never got past the pirate stage, and that was stage 3.
Yeah, well, I remember because my brother, this was before the days of DLCs and everything, before the internet blew up like it did, and you had to write down on a piece of paper cheat codes. That makes me feel old. Writing down cheat codes on a piece of paper. You can't just look it up on Google. I remember there was a cheat code where basically you could just unlock every level and all the abilities. So you didn't have to like do one level, go back to it to get everything that you missed.
I wish I knew that when I had the game, because I was pretty bad.
I always used to get frustrated because I wanted to get everything the first time and then you'd go, good, but you left some stuff behind you. I was like,
oh, Merlin's a wanker,
well, I couldn't get it. I know, I couldn't get it because I didn't have the perks.
He always sounded weird, didn't he? He sounded like a fucking sex offender.
In light of Twitter, what's been coming out the past couple of days, it wouldn't surprise me. Bugs Bunny, Lost in Time Merlin. Yeah, some dodgy dealings back in the 90s.
Did you ever play Bugs Bunny and Taz Time Busters?
I did, but I always got stuck on this level where basically you went into a pyramid. I think it was a pyramid. It wasn't in Egypt, but it was like an ancient ruin. And I never knew where to go.
Oh, it was the Aztec one, was it? That was the first level after the tutorial.
Yeah, I got stuck. I was like, hang on, but I can't go anywhere. So I couldn't get any further.
I managed to complete it, but I had a bit of help because there was this one thing, like you go into this room and you have to do like a Simon Says with the guy doing the drums.
Oh, yeah.
What I had a friend jotting down the rhythm and what the order of the things, and I was putting things through that way. That was the only way I completed it. Because the rest of the time I was just like, me no get it. Me no get it.
So that was your early equivalent of cheat codes?
Yeah, just have someone else going, yeah, I'll jot that down, I'll jot that down, I'll jot that down. It was a good two-player aspect on that one as well.
Yeah, like, I remember me and my brother were playing quite a bit of it together. I think I always ended up being Taz.
I loved it. Like, did you ever try this when you were in it? Like, you just put them in single file. You put Taz right behind Bugs, and then he ends up biting his tail.
Yeah, or he just pick you up and just start running around with Bugs on his thing. He just lobs him.
I love how you can actually kill each other.
Yeah. I mean, that was probably bad for me and my brother because that just gave us too much fun.
The way me and my brother used to play it, he never played the game properly. He'd just rather play a game of tag in the tutorial level.
Oh, that's older brothers for you, isn't it?
You're not trying to make this game more interesting by doing that. You're just taking away from everything.
Oh, no.
Just sucking the fun out of it.
One thing that always comes up, especially when I'm talking to friends and my brother about this, is how well graphics have adapted since we started playing video games to where they are now. It's just night and day.
It's crazy, but at the time, they looked amazing to us, didn't they? Like,
well, that's the thing. Like, another big one for me was Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone for PlayStation 1. And back then, me and my brother didn't know any better because this was groundbreaking. But now, what the hell is this blocky stuff?
You look at fucking Hagrid and he just looks like he's had a stroke.
Yeah. Dumbledore's glasses just disappear up and down his face. I'm like, what the hell? Still a fun game though, but
it's like a hobo taking over a school. Like, it's great.
Oh, one little sidetrack about that. One thing that me and my brother always used to laugh at was glitches in games. Like, and in Harry Potter, there was the Quidditch matches you had to play, and it would always have the same introduction. Welcome to Quidditch. I am your commentator, Lee Jordan. But because we had a chipped PlayStation and we had a lot of chipped games, there was a glitch at that. So it would go, welcome to Quidditch. I am your commentator. Welcome to Quidditch. Hello, welcome. Or do you prefer Mr. Quidditch? I don't know.
I think either way, he's just both a choice there. So
going on, like, back to the previous point about graphics, it's just insane to see how much, like, video games come on. It's getting to a point where they're looking more realistic each year.
Yeah, especially like if you look like the graphics in like Last of Us and like Witcher and stuff.
Oh,
like,
defo.
They actually look like actual human beings. It's crazy.
They have more emotion and more life in them than actual people.
And yet, children's TV, they literally look like lifeless puppets.
Exactly.
When they've moved from CGI from hand-drawn. Like,
but then again, it's the other way around when, like, you see some games and you think they should have amazing graphics, then other times it looks like they've gone back a few generations.
Well, like Bubsy 3D.
Yeah, well, like WWE games, if you have a look at them. 2K20, if you want to see glitches, just type in fail compilation.
I will say, the evolution of one game franchise I'm really proud of is Resident Evil.
Yes, definitely.
Because it started off with bog standard graphics, fixed camera angles and tank controls.
Mm-hmm.
And now we've got the remasters now, because like I've introduced you to RE2 Remake. I've got RE3 Remake now. I've completed that numerous times.
Yeah.
Say, like, how did you find RE2 Remake when you first tried it, like, compared to the original?
It was really interesting because, like you say, like with the original, it had its fixed camera angles, and obviously, like we just established, graphics back then weren't exactly great, but it did have that real element of horror because of the fixed camera angles. But now, because you're in this new generation and you can make things look so realistic, they didn't have to have those fixed camera angles, but it just worked for like a modern generation. I really enjoyed Resident Evil 2's remake for different reasons to the original, if that makes sense.
That's one thing I do. Like, I'll always love the original because it's one of the first PlayStation games I've ever had for the console. I grew up with it, and I've completed it numerous times, unlocked all the guns. And it's... I think trying to compare them exact is impossible. Do you find that?
Yeah, definitely. It's like trying to compare like an old PlayStation game to a brand new PS5 game, for example. It's just like, well, of course they're going to be bloody different because they're generations apart.
With the RE2 remake as well, they've found different ways to keep the survival horror alive, innit? Because they had over-the-shoulder third-person camera angle, didn't they? And they took away the visuals as well, so all you're relying on is a torch to see what's going on. So things surprise you a lot more.
That's the thing. Like, again, it just goes back to having that authentic reaction to a video game. That's why I still highly believe that video game is a fantastic art form and it can't be replicated anywhere else.
I will say, because of that atmosphere, I would say I find Mr. X a lot more terrifying in RE2 Remake.
Yeah, and you actually feel like you're actually going to get punched in the head.
Oh, you just hear his footsteps, all of a sudden your jaw drops.
Well, that's how good video game is, because I feel like it could get like a reaction out of you that you just can't get anywhere else. I haven't played it myself, but have you heard of Battlefield, the war game?
Yeah, I've heard of it, but I've never played it.
I haven't played it, but there's a YouTube channel called The Closer Look, and he goes into it in perfect detail. But in Battlefield 1, which is, I believe, came out on PlayStation 4, there's a level where you are basically playing as a soldier in the trenches. No matter how good you are always going to die. And then you change to another soldier. But again, no matter how good you are, you would always get killed off. You were shooting all these German soldiers, but you were seeing shell-shocked people. You were seeing people just with blown off limbs and everything. Some people cradling because they are just so terrified of what's happening. It's so weird because there's a point where you have to shoot a soldier, but he just couldn't. So that's the thing. It's like video games can just capture that imagination and capture that emotion that I feel like you can't replicate in a book or film.
Yeah, there's certain things you can, because with books everything's left to the imagination, whereas like say film and games and stuff like that, it's the imagination brought to life.
Yeah, but you're only shown what the filmmaker's allowing you to see.
Yeah, and that's what makes it more of a unique experience at the same time as well.
Exactly. And that leads me on to this personal question for you, Mark, is, has there ever been a moment in video games that has made you either emotional or feel a very strong connection, if that makes sense?
Well, strong emotion, most good games piss me off because they're that fucking difficult.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
But I know what you mean. Like, there's a lot of games like I do hold in very high regard because I've grown up playing them. Like it's like Spyro the Dragon. I'll always love that game because it's something I used to rent every weekend when I used to go up to my grandfather's.
Mm-hmm.
And
the old Blockbuster days.
Yep, Blockbuster Video was brilliant. It's a $5 and you could play the game for the whole weekend.
Yeah. Like, Blockbuster, I always remember just renting Lord of the Rings 2 Towers. No matter how many times I completed it, I just loved playing it.
Oh, the action and the sword play in it was brilliant.
Here's my answer for that question, is actually one you mentioned earlier, which is The Witcher. In Witcher 3, The Wild Hunt, there's a pivotal scene where you've been trying to hunt down a certain character, and then you sit down and then you think that the character is dead, and then literally there's no dialogue. It's just silence. And no word of a lie, I wept. I wept because I was just so full of emotion for that scene, because I thought, this character I have spent the entire game trying to find, who through flashbacks have grown a big connection with, I actually it was really moving and really powerful.
It just goes to show how well done that is to get like an emotional response like that. Because especially like compared to older games, it was literally like, do this, get a high score. Now you've got a very well developed character, you have a very well developed story, and it just moves you in various ways like that. That's why I'm finding like some games that try to get promoted onto film don't work necessarily as well, because they didn't take, well, they're like, it's like with the Resident Evil franchise, the film franchise, they've gone from survival horror to straight action, and it didn't work.
But then you got the flip side, is like where some things only specifically work in a video game context. It's like the Agent 47 film. Like, based on the game, you just go around killing people. And they tried to replicate that 100% in the film, but there was no backbone to the film. So it was just like, so just random killing.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because there's two different installments for Agent 47. Like, because Timothy Olyphant played it first. I thought he did have a bit of an attitude, and he tried to make do with it. He's a good actor.
I think this is like the newest Agent 47 film.
Yeah, I've seen that. I did find it a bit forgettable.
There's been too faithful to the video game, and then the thing with Resident Evil, yeah, they did change it quite drastically. But I felt like maybe they had to, if that makes sense.
I think they shouldn't have had the protagonist as like heightened as she was, because if you look at Resident Evil Apocalypse, the stuff with Jill Valentine in Raccoon City is great. And then all of a sudden, Alice comes in with her superhuman strength and everything. It just takes away from it. The idea of Resident Evil is that you got normal people dealing with supernatural and genetically enhanced stuff. Say now if you had Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 paired together, because they did cross over. Because Resident Evil 3 is just before 2, and it finishes after Resident Evil 2 as well. Like, they could have put Jill, Leon, and Claire in the same boat, having them battle Mr. X and Nemesis at the same time. Like, as in different forms. But the fact that they're young and naive and they're trying to get through it, I think that would have developed more connection with the audience.
Yeah, I could agree with that, to be fair. But again, it's just like, unfortunately, like a lot of video games movies are panned because like some people say, oh, they don't follow the source material well, or they followed it too much and then it didn't work on a film context. There's loads of different reasons for that. But one thing that I am wondering now is, how far can video games go, especially in this era that we're in?
The thing is, if you don't take a risk, you're not going to find out if it works or not. So I'd say let them take risks and do that. Like, if you look at RE3 Remake, some people are disappointed because it's nothing like the original, but the original is unique in its own little way. Yeah. But I still love Resident Evil 3 Remake as its own entity. It does capture the nostalgia part, but it's still its own game, which makes me love it even more. It's like, it's capturing what I used to play, but in a different way, if you get me.
I gotta say, Mark, thank you so much for coming on to this edition of Tea Stories. It's been wonderful having you, as always.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, mate.
And I gotta say, you look wonderful in those glasses you're wearing.
Well, I gotta look intelligent somehow, haven't I?
Like I said at the start of the video, Mark does host his own podcast. So, Mark, if you want to give a shout out for that, where can we find you on social media and YouTube?
Yep, you can find me on Mark My Words Podcasts on Facebook. I do have a music page on YouTube, but I also have a playlist for Mark My Words on that, and that's titled Mark James Music. So you can check me out there. So please sure to like both of us, subscribe to us, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of the fun.
And he's literally just said my final sentence I was going to say, so I thank you again for that, Mark. But I hope you have a lovely day, guys. Take care of yourselves and have a good cup of tea or coffee to just chill out. Thanks again, Mark. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you soon.
All right, bye.
Take care, buddy.